I'm Alexa Burton, but you can call me Lexi. Welcome to our third episode of Two Chairs and a Camera. And with me today, I have Andi Michelson, and she has recently published 2 books. Why don't you tell me about those?
Okay. Well, Queen Bee is a chapter book. It is written at the 3rd grade level. I recommend it for 6 to 10 years
Okay.
old. Hopefully it's the first in a series called the Baxter School Kids.
Okay.
I just happened to go to Baxter School in Canton, which has now been demolished, but whatever. So the series is going to cover different kids
Okay.
in the class. And this first girl, her name is Beatrice, and she's a bossy girl,
Okay.
which she's a firstborn child, which I was too, so I have a lot of experience being a bossy girl.
I don't think I was bossy.
She's pretty popular.
Okay.
But her friends are starting to get tired of the fact that she always wants to do things her way when she wants to do them. And there's a new girl that moves to the school, and people are starting to gravitate towards her. So the book is about Beatrice becoming more self-aware of how her behavior and her words affect other people.
Okay.
The book kind of culminates in a trip that the class takes to a bee farm.
Okay.
And, you can see from the title, Queen Bee, a lot of her friends and her brother call her Queen Bee, and not in a kind way. But when the class takes this trip to the bee farm, she learns something about queen bees. And I guess I can tell you what it is.
Well, I mean, we don't want to necessarily spoil it, but I don't know what age audience we have for this podcast yet either.
Probably
So.
not 3rd graders. So I used to be a beekeeper.
Oh, I was going to ask you where this came from.
Yes. And one of the most fascinating things that I learned about bees is when the female bees are hatched, they're all identical. Only one of them in each colony is going to turn into a queen. And the thing that turns that one into a queen is the worker bees for the first 3 days feed all of the female bees royal jelly.
Okay.
After the 3rd day, they keep feeding the queen royal jelly. The other bees start getting fed honey and pollen.
Okay.
Those 2 things turn off the egg-laying capacity. So worker bees do not lay eggs. Only the queen can lay eggs. So when Beatrice learns this little fact at the bee farm, she's already had inklings of how she is not always kind to other people. And she starts to realize...
And that one can be a hard one for kids to become self-aware of.
Absolutely, especially at this age.
How old is she in the book?
3rd grade.
Okay.
So 8-ish, maybe
Something
9.
like that.
Yeah. So she starts to think about, if I feed everybody kind words, we can all be queens. I mean, kind of hokey in a way.
But it works.
It worked. It worked for me. And so there's a lot of good bee information in here. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah,
but
I'll be able to zoom in with the...
I love the illustrations that my illustrator did.
You know what else I can do? I can take camera shots before you leave.
So they're on a field trip, and so they learn all this stuff, but meanwhile, the reader is learning all this stuff also, and the class is doing a project, and the last day of class...
Kind of teaching something without realizing that they're learning.
Yes. And in the back of the book, I have a glossary of bee terms, and this part I call the buzz, interesting bee facts, like where do beekeepers get bees? Do you know where beekeepers get bees?
Other beekeepers?
You can't. You can actually buy...
Internet?
Actually, you can buy a package of bees. And it's like this little wooden box with screened sides. And they come up from Georgia, usually.
Okay.
And you buy them in the spring. And they call it installing it into your beehive.
Okay.
So that's how most beekeepers get started.
I really want bees.
Let me tell you about bees.
I have been told no, but I want bees someday.
You know,
maybe
they're fascinating. I mean, just even to sit out in a chair and watch your beehive is a cool thing.
I'll show you the garden before I leave.
Okay. And if you do get bees, you'll kind of really be hooked, and then you'll start buying more plants that are going to feed the bees so that they have flowers like all through the spring and summer. The bad thing about bees is there are so many ways they can die. And
I've heard that.
yeah, some of the old timers have said it's not like it was in the old days. You know, they said we used to just check them once in the spring, then we go harvest our honey in the fall. And now it's like you check them every 2 or 3 weeks.
There's two things that have really held me back. One
Yeah.
is just putting another thing on my plate.
Right.
Because I don't have a lack of projects at all.
No.
And then the other is I honestly don't know if I'm allergic to bees.
Oh.
I have never been stung unless putting my hands down on a dead bee counts. So, don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Don't really want to get into owning bees if I
Yeah.
don't know I'm not allergic to
but
them.
you'd be wearing a bee suit. And that's not to say you can't.
Yeah, but there'd
get
be a
stung.
lot of them on the property.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you've got another one here too.
Yes. This is called What If, a Worriers Tool Kit.
Okay.
My qualification for writing this? Big time worrier.
Me too.
Okay.
And we come up with our coping mechanisms, huh?
Well, yes, and that is part of my intention here. The way I have the book set up, well, okay, first of all, kids and adults that deal with anxiety, I think we tend to catastrophize things. If something happens, we immediately go to what is the worst thing.
Because if you're prepared for the worst thing, then you're prepared for everything.
And you know what? That reminds me of a situation with my grandson Jonas. This actually was the impetus to actually sit down and write this book. He was just a little guy. Like, he's, I think, a junior in high school now.
Okay.
But when he was a little guy, he was questioning his mom one day, my daughter, and saying, what are we going to do if this happens? And, she would very patiently explain, well, we'll do this. And he'd say, but what if this happens? And, and they went back and forth several times. And she finally...
And where their minds go is just amazing.
Right. I mean, very smart kid, so he's trying to cover all the bases. And she finally said to him, Jonas, what are you so worried about? And he said, I'm not worried. I just like to plan ahead. So that goes right to what you were saying.
I like to plan for everything.
Yes, I get that. So the way I set this book up...
Everything except my writing. I don't plan my writing at all.
Right.
Not one little bit.
Yeah.
You...
I'm kind of a plotzer and a pantser.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to have a general idea.
Yeah, I've got some highlights. Like, I know some points I'm going to hit, but other than that, I just kind of throw my characters in the deep end and let them tell me what's happening.
And that is really true, that they do tell you.
Was writing the other day.
Yeah.
I am 3 chapters from the end of this book. They keep throwing side quests at me.
Oh, no.
2 side quests in one day's writing.
So, how many more pages is this going to take to wrap things up? Probably a lot.
I ended up with adding roughly another 1,000 words to the book with these 2 side quests.
Wow.
And they're not big side quests.
Well,
Anyway.
that's good. I guess it's a good problem to have too much to say than not enough.
Yeah, and one thing that helped me in my writing was internalizing a story is however long it has to be told. And if that means it's 10,000 words, that's how long it is. If it's 16, if it's 110,
Right.
it's however long it needs to be told.
Yeah.
And I stopped worrying about trying to make things into whole books or into short stories, and I'm just letting it be what it's going to be.
Well, and I'll tell you, that's one of the things that I love about self-publishing is you do not have to fit into...
You don't have to fit into somebody else's mold.
Right.
I like my mold.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so let me tell you about this. So, worriers tend to really make things huge in their minds. So I have a whole bunch of scenarios, and the first question that I asked the child, and this is a workbook, so they're supposed to be writing.
Okay.
What is the worst thing that could happen? And the example that I give here is, what if I write in a library book?
Okay.
Okay, bear in mind, this is written for
kids.
For kids, like 7 to 12-year-olds probably. What is the worst thing that can happen? What is the worst thing if you write in a library book?
You have to pay for the book.
Yeah. Okay. So, after they verbalize that, then the question is, what positive actions can I take?
Keep pens away from my books.
But it's too late for that.
Okay, so this is something.
They're
the positive
supposed
action can you take after
after the fact.
From a kid's perspective, tell a grown-up?
Yeah, that works. So the kids are not supposed to turn the page until they think this through on their own. Then I have answers on the back side of that page. What is the worst thing that could happen? Exactly what you said. I'll get in trouble and I'll have to pay for the book. What are some positive actions I can take? I could try to erase my answers, you know, if you did it in pencil. I can apologize. I could pay for the book with my allowance. Besides, it's a good book that I'd like to keep for myself.
And you checked it out in the library. It probably is.
Right. So I have the whole book is divided into 4 different sections.
Okay.
I have school and social situations. And I try to keep these situations things that a middle school or upper elementary would really be dealing with. What if I forget to bring my lunch to school? To an adult, that doesn't seem like a big deal. To a kid,
To a kid, it is.
it could. Yeah, it could.
I still remember the one and only time I forgot to take my lunch to school. I don't remember what grade it was, but I'm thinking 2nd.
And what happened?
I charged it. It was French toast sticks, which I found vile.
Okay.
But that's stuck in my head, and I don't
Yeah.
know why I didn't like French toast sticks, because I like French toast.
Yeah. Maybe they were just a little too prefab.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely either 1st, 2nd, or 3rd.
Yeah.
So it sticks. Things stick in a warrior's mind.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So after the school and social situation chapter, there is a friend chapter. And an example of one of those is, what if my best friend likes somebody else better? Okay, that could be big. And
Yeah.
I mean, I totally remember that situation.
Yeah,
There
that
were
happens
3
too.
of us.
Aw.
And 2 of us would always be against the other one, and then this one would go over here, and then
That's
know
hard
how
when
that is.
there's a trio.
Right. So there's a whole bunch of friend situations. Then there is a family situation. Some of these are very lighthearted, but some of them get heavier. One is, what if my parents argue all the time? You know, what steps can you take? You know, talk to another trusted adult. You know, support them both, love them both.
It's things that you don't want to think about happening, but for kids that worry,
Right.
they're gonna think anyway. So.
Well, and along those lines, I'll tell you one situation I was not sure if I wanted to put in the book or not in the school section is, what if there's an active shooter at our school? Now, when I was growing up in the 70s,
It wasn't a thing.
That wasn't a thing. So
I was kind of before that too, and
yeah,
I mean, I've already managed to date myself in these things, but
yeah.
yeah.
It's like I couldn't decide if I should put it in the book or not, because I don't want to give kids something else to worry about they haven't already thought of. But everybody that I talked to about it, a school counselor from my church, she's like, kids are already thinking
aware.
about it. And they do drills.
Because, yeah, so they're already aware that it's a possibility.
Right.
The ones that aren't gonna worry aren't gonna need the book.
Right.
The ones that are,
They're already aware.
they're already aware.
So there's the school situation, the parent, the family situation, the friend situation, and then the last one is like safety, health, emergency.
Okay.
So what if there's a tornado? What if I get lost? What if I wake up and smell smoke? And, some of those, what if we get in a car accident? So in addition to the regular format, I have a little thing down here that says, just a note, always wear a seatbelt.
Okay.
Take a basic first aid class and keep a first aid kit in the car. Talk to my parents about keeping a hammer or emergency device under the seat. in case I need to break a window to escape.
Some basic tips for the real
Yep.
serious ones.
Yep. And, you know, same thing with if I wake up and smell smoke.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, ask your parents to keep working smoke detectors. Have a family plan. Like, if you all escape the house, where do we meet?
Mm-hmm.
Do we meet by the big tree by the driveway? Do we go to the
Mhm.
neighbor's house? What do we do? And
I remember having a very similar conversation at some point.
Yeah.
Again, I must have been real young, but yeah.
And doesn't that alleviate some of your worries?
Yeah.
When you know that...
I'm not sure where I got it in my head, but my thought for the escape plan was to go out my dad's window, onto the roof, and down the pole on the porch. And I know for a fact that is not what my mother told me.
Yeah.
But that was what my warrior brain
Yeah.
came up with.
Yeah. Well, that could have been plan B if you couldn't go into the hallway.
If I couldn't go down the stairs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plan A and plan B.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing with warriors is you want every contingency.
Right.
And you're gonna think about it, whether you've got a format to or not.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say one other
Mhm.
thing. I have the public school edition,
Mm-hmm.
but as a Christian, I kind of felt like a big part for me of not worrying is knowing all of God's promises that are in the Bible. And there are a bunch of them. And so I decided to also make a Christian school edition. And in the back of that...
I like that you did it in 2 separate editions.
Exactly.
To be more inclusive.
Right. And it's not like I want to force my beliefs on other people.
But you still want to have that helpful tool
Right.
for other people.
Right. And, you know, just a couple of the Bible verses. In Proverbs it says, anxiety in a man's heart weighs it down, but a good word makes it glad. And, I mean, that is just so good. Philippians, be anxious for nothing. Okay. I'm working on that.
But you know how well that one works.
Yes.
So don't worry.
Yeah. Well, but it goes on to say other things.
It's
So-
like the dreaded, just calm down.
Right. Like that works. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, especially as a woman. I'm sure you've had that happen.
Yes.
So are you working on anything now?
I am. Since Queen Bee is supposed to be the first in the series,
Uh-huh.
I am working on Lucy's story. And
Okay.
Lucy is the new girl
Okay.
who came.
Tie it all in.
Yeah.
Well, you said it was gonna be all but each from a different kid.
Yeah, and every kid, you know, I know you're not supposed to have a blatant moral or lesson in children's books.
A lot. I don't
But-
want to say most, but a lot of them do.
But I mean, I believe it should be woven in a very, you know.
I mean, the Berenstein Bears have been around and they all have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, and so Lucy's story, I wouldn't say it's immoral, but it's educational because the reason Lucy's family moved to town right at the end of a school year is because her grandmother has dementia and can't stay home alone anymore. And the family had a big powwow and they decided the best way to take care of grandma would be for whoever in the family was able to actually move into her house. So she's in her familiar environment. She doesn't have to change her church. She doesn't have to change her friends. She can still be, you know, where she's comfortable. So that's why the family came. And so Lucy is going to learn a lot about dementia and how we can love and help people who have dementia, because I imagine a lot of kids have loved ones in their families that are dealing with that.
Yeah. It's an awful problem.
Mm-hmm. It is. And even if it's not dementia, just, you know, the whole aging process and, you know, elderly people, you know, like, don't really want to go to a nursing home. Sometimes that's the safest place. You know, sometimes a family can't take care of them. But if they can, what a wonderful thing that is.
Yeah.
So, you asked what else I'm working on. I'm working on that. I also, since I decided to stop trying to be traditionally published, I have actually 4 picture book manuscripts that I have been sending out for a couple years. So my illustrator that did Queen Bee is illustrating one of my picture books. And we're hoping to have that done by the end. Well, the artwork by the end of July. I'm
Okay.
hoping to have it available for sale before Christmas.
That'll be awesome.
It is called Little Roo, and
Okay.
it's about a rooster who is not.
Okay, I was going kangaroo, but
I know, everybody does. He is not an early bird. And if you think about that for a minute, you could just picture
This
all the
one's
craziness. Yeah, it's pretty fun. So
yeah. I am not an early bird either. Many of my videos are filmed at like 10 at night.
yeah.
I have good lighting. What inspired you to do the Baxter Kids?
I actually took a writing course, kind of like online writing course through the Institute. I can never remember if it's Institute for Children's Literature or the Institute of Children's
Okay.
Literature, but it is an amazing course that you can take, and you can even get college credit for it. I chose not to, but they pair you up with your own instructor, I guess you would say, and I want to say there were 9 different assignments, and you have 2 years, I think, to complete it. So they send you this huge course manual, with all this. I mean, it's like a college class, really, and you get your assignment, you write it, you send it to your instructor, and within a couple weeks, you get a very, very detailed, marked up,
Okay.
like,
okay.
this is how I would change this doesn't work, this is great.
That which can both be helpful and very nerve-wracking.
You know what, though? It just spurred me on
Okay.
to want to do better. And this book was actually, it was the second course that I took with them, writing for children, I think was the title of it. But anyway, the last several assignments, we focused entirely on this book. So, I mean, this was heavily edited
Okay.
and revised.
So much editing.
Yes, but it was wonderful, and I would so recommend that course to anybody who is serious about being a writer. I guess they have an adult group too. The one I took was purely
Okay.
for children.
Have you ever wanted to write for adults, or has the interest always been younger? Okay.
Yeah, of all ages
Okay.
though. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had things published in like a teen hunting magazine,
Okay.
like 6 different things.
Oh, congratulations.
That was the first thing I ever got paid for, right?
Oh.
It was awesome.
That's
Yeah.
always a fun one.
Yes.
You frame it and stick it on the wall.
Yeah, that was fun. You know what else I'm trying to do right now? I'm really hoping to do a lot of school visits. I love to talk to kids. I'm a piano teacher by trade.
Okay.
So, I mean, since 1988, I've been dealing with kids, and I just have a heart for kids, and I feel like I can kind of understand where they're coming from. Like,
Right.
they say something, and like, I'm on their wavelength. I understand. So,
Young at heart.
yes. I don't look so young anymore, but young at heart, definitely.
Well, and that's really what matters, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, I'm wearing strawberry shortcake.
Yeah.
I saw this shirt a couple of days ago, and I had to get it.
It works. So I think maybe I'm just stuck in 3rd grade or something, but when I was writing this book, it's like I could feel all those emotions of not fitting in with the crowd and wanting to be more popular, and nobody likes me right now, everybody's mad at me. I can understand all those feelings. So I do have a couple school visits coming up in April.
Ooh, what
Yeah,
fun.
and they're going to be like 2nd and 3rd graders that I'm talking to. So I'm trying to line up more of those. And basically, since it's not a picture book, I can't
Right.
read it.
There's
the whole
pictures
thing.
in it, but
Yeah, and I can't read it in a 45-minute class. So I've got a whole program worked out about like, where do authors get ideas, and where can you get ideas? Talking to the kids, and what's a good verb?
Okay.
We could just say walk, or we can say tiptoe, prance, plod, trudge, skip. And I'm going to have the kids act these out to try to really
interaction,
engage them.
engagement.
Yeah. And actually there's a kind of a sad chapter in here where Beatrice's younger brother, who she's always bossy with, they're walking home from school together and they're coming to the road and she says, Brady, take my hand. He's like, I don't have to. You're not the boss of me. And he runs into the road. And he runs into a car. And there's a picture here of her dad happens to be a paramedic.
Alright.
And, you know, so he's one of the ones that actually comes there. So there's this little interaction with them. But why I'm bringing this up is because I know when you're in 2nd and 3rd grade, you're learning how to use complete sentences. And I'm breaking the rules here. Because in this particular scene, I'm trying to get across the tension of the moment. So I'm just going to read this little bit.
By all means. Yep.
Brady, you do too have to listen to me. Beatrice grabbed for him just as he dashed away from her into the street. Beatrice felt like she was watching a slow motion replay on TV of the crossing guard throwing his arms out, of the car grinding to a stop, of herself opening her mouth to scream, and of Brady crumpling to the ground. A siren, slamming doors, a murmur of voices. The next thing Beatrice knew, Mrs. Martin was kneeling in front of her. Brady, is he? Beatrice was afraid to finish her question. And I'm going to stop it there. Just so you have to wonder. But, you know,
I've read it, so I
yeah. So I think right there, it's entirely appropriate to use just like short, snappy phrases instead of complete sentences. And so I'm going to have the class rewrite that scene using complete sentences and then decide which is more effective for what the feeling is that we're trying to get across. So that's kind of what I have.
It's a good lesson, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, because I know the teachers are trying to get them to do complete sentences
Right.
at that point. So as a
break the rules once
right,
in a while.
I don't know how they'd feel about that,
Right.
but you also want to encourage the independent and artistic creative thinking
Right.
and coach the next generation of little writers
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
I remember being in the computer lab in kindergarten, and one of the stations was like a free write. And okay, I was 6 or 5. I was a young. I turned up at the very end of the year. Every single one of my files. Once upon a time, something, something, something. Once upon a time, something, something, something. And I mean, I never actually went back and finished a story because I was 5.
Yeah.
So every single day that I got put on the free write station, I started a story of some sort. I don't remember a single one of them.
Wow.
But would have been interesting for them to put that on a disc for you at the end of the year or something.
Oh, would that?
Yeah.
That would have been
But
cool.
encourage the next generation of, and then, so that was kindergarten, but like all through school, I was the kid with the notebook on the top of my desk.
Yeah.
Did you start writing early?
I'm sure that I did, but one thing that really stands, I mean, I was always a reader, you know, loved
So was
reading.
I.
One bit of encouragement that really stood out to me was, I think my freshman year in high school, I forget if it was creative writing, the course, or, you know, what it was, but Mr. Matkowski was his name. And he gave us 10 words. And our assignment, our homework assignment, was to make 10 sentences using those words. And I'm thinking, really? We're freshmen. That is so lame to write 10 sentences. So I thought, well, I'm going to go one better. I'm going to actually make a story with those, you know. Apparently he thought that was amazing or something. Because he went down, and that was before photocopy machines. That was like a mimeograph or something.
Xerox.
Xerox, that's what it was. So, you know, he made it and passed it out to the class. And, and I thought, I mean, not that I thought it was that
it's just,
amazing.
Yeah.
But that was just like a little bit of encouragement that, you know, writing can be a cool thing.
Well, I'm going to ask you one more fun,
Okay.
important question. And I know we've kind of gotten a lot of this already, but give me one more fun fact that doesn't relate to your writing about you.
Okay. Well, it does kind of relate.
Okay.
I have dairy goats.
Oh, what fun!
I love my goats.
I want goats too.
Well, I've got to have baby goats.
I've also been told no.
Okay. Yes, I've got to have baby goats next Saturday. So they're due in a week,
Oh.
and they're fabulous. So you might have to come
Now,
at least see them.
how does it relate?
The way it relates is because two of my picture books that I'm waiting to have
Okay.
illustrated, not the Little Roo, but I have two other ones. One is called Counting Chickens, and one is called Goat Garden.
Oh, that's fun.
And they both have the same character. Her name is Callie Lou. And so I'm planning to do a whole series. I've already got a couple more in my head, and I'm going to call it Callie Lou's Barnyard or something like that.
And then you can go through the different animals and...
Yep.
Well, that would be fun.
Because everybody loves goats, right?
Oh, everybody loves all kids and animals.
Yeah.
That's just a given, right?
Yes.
I've never met... I've met kids that are like, I'm afraid of dogs or whatever, but not liking animals in general or picture books about animals, that's a given.
Right.
But I think we are going to wrap that up here. If you are interested in either of Andi's books or any of the upcoming ones, any links that you send me, I will go ahead and put in the description below. Links for the books, links for, do you have author socials?
I have Facebook.
Okay.
And I actually have an author website.
I can link anything that you would like me to link
Yeah.
down below. So check those out. Give her books a look. And it was great having you today.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Lexi. This was fun.
See, I told you there was nothing
It
to be
was
scared
I
of.
was nervous, but it was fun.
But if you could give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye!
Bye.